Exposed secrets of a haunted logging camp, 12 sinister rules to survive the cursed forest. Jenny had always heard the chilling tales that echoed through Pine Hollow. Whispers of the abandoned logging camp, steeped in darkness, filled her mind with endless possibilities for a summer adventure. Together with her friends Lily, Max, and Jake, they were ready to unearth the hidden secrets, blinded by youthful bravado and the sweet scent of pine in the air. As they ventured deeper into the thick woods, the laughter faded, swallowed by an eerie silence. The cicadas that once chirped joyfully seemed to hush, their familiar sounds replaced by a suffocating tension. Trees twisted like gnarled hands reaching out to grasp them, and Jenny felt the weight of the forest pressing down. "Look at this!" Lily shouted, pointing to a tree with something carved into its bark. "Never stray from the path." The words, etched in uneven letters, chilled Jenny's spine. "What a joke," Jake laughed nervously, but their mirth was short-lived as the looming shadows seemed to pulse around them. Another warning caught Jenny's attention: trust no one. "See on, guys, let us get to the camp," she insisted, trying to shake off the creeping sense of dread clawing at her heart. Hoping for excitement, they pressed on, adrenaline coursing through their veins. But with the sun dipping below the horizon, darkness wrapped around them like a suffocating blanket. The rustle of leaves sounded sharper, more threatening. Shadows morphed into haunting shapes, and Jenny's heart raced. She could feel the tension thickening among her friends, glances flitting with unspoken accusations. "Did you hear that?" Max whispered, his voice trembling. "Probably just an animal," Jenny replied, but doubt gnawed at her insides. Was it paranoia, or was something indeed lurking nearby? Before they knew it, whispers curling through the air sent her heart racing. Distant echoes of laughter twisted into something sinister, like fingernails scraping against old wood. "Let us head back," Jake urged, but anger bubbled up in the group. Frustrated, they began to argue. Each friend's vulnerability laid bare, secrets unveiled like spilled ink. "I can lead, I know the way," Lily shouted, her eyes wide and frantic. "What if you've plotted against us?" Max snapped. "You might not be the one to trust." That was it. Tension escalated, the air filled with resentment and fear. Shadows loomed closer, the forest seemed to join the fight, suffocating them with whispers that crackled like static. Paranoia spiraled, each friend seeing enemy faces glimmering within the dim light. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as night kissed the woods, shadows seemed to shift, forming darker shapes that crept closer, relentless. Each tree of that cursed forest bore witness to anguish and betrayal, echoes of the camp's sinister history seeping through the air like poison. Together, they stumbled through memories of anguish, feeling the weight of ancient truths pressing down. Is it too late? Jenny thought, a shiver racing through her even as she stumbled forward. A soft rustling had her spinning around. Behind her, the darkness seemed alive, breathing with a malicious, pulsing heartbeat. The woods closed in, laughter taunting them, the very trees reaching out to keep them ensnared within the silence of their shared fears. And within that haunted realm, the very essence of trust began to unravel. Who can we truly believe? Jenny wondered as an anxious whisper carried her name through the chilling breeze. And in that moment, she felt it, the harrowing proximity of danger, lurking just beyond sight, as their fate hung precariously in the balance. The whispers enveloped them deeper in the forest's heart. Each flicker of movement drew Jenny's gaze like a moth to flame. Fear clutched at her throat as shadows slithered between the trees. She could feel the echoes of their past seeping into her very soul, clawing at her sanity. "Stick together," she implored, but even her own voice trembled, betraying her fear. Max gripped Jake's arm, pulling him close. "What if it's one of us?" he said, panic veiling his words. "What if the forest is using us, turning us against each other?" "Stop!" Lily shouted, her voice breaking. "We're not enemies." But the shadows watched. They loomed. Each tree seemed to lean in, giving the forest an impossible size, an overwhelming presence. Jenny's heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning out the whispers that now penetrated the very essence of the air around them. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the tension, freezing their hearts in place. It came from deep within the woods, raw and haunting, an echo of agony woven into the fabric of the night. "Did you hear that?" Jake's face was pale as he stared into the blackness. "Maybe, someone's hurt," Jenny suggested, trying to maintain a grip on reason, but Lily shook her head vehemently. "Or maybe it's a trap. Now's not the time for this." Max's voice cut like a knife through the air. "We need to act. What if there is someone out there?" The group stood still, breathing heavily, eyes darting everywhere. The forest felt like a cage, tightening around them. A faint, flickering light appeared through the trees, illuminating a clearing ahead, a glimmer of hope. Or another trick of the darkness. "If we can just see what that is," Jenny urged. She stepped forward, compelled by a force she couldn't resist, leaving the argument behind. Staring skeptically at the light, Jake took a shuddering breath. "What if it leads us to that scream? Or worse?" But curiosity pulled them forward, one step at a time. As they approached the clearing, the air shifted. The light danced nervously, revealing a weathered table surrounded by scattered belongings, old lanterns, tattered clothes, and bones. Jenny's stomach churned as she felt a nausea rolling in. "This isn't right," she whispered, horrified. "We have to turn back." Suddenly, the whispers escalated. "Who are you?" they hissed, echoing from all directions. "We're just kids," Max shouted, his voice cracking. "We mean no harm." And just like that, silence fell. The oppressive tension shattered, plunging them into an auditory chasm. But it didn't last. The whispering returned, now taunting, a ghostly laughter resonating through the trees, wrapping them in a layer of ice. The ground beneath their feet trembled, pulsing like a heartbeat. Jenny looked to her friends. Fear had turned into dread, their faces pale against the darker shadows clawing at their sanity. As they turned to run back the way they came, the chill tightened around them, tightening into a cruel grip, tearing at their resolve. Shadows lengthened, twisting their forms into grotesque shapes. With every strained breath, the forest echoed with new whispers, urging them to stay, to learn, to surrender, but Jenny was aware now, knew the forest demanded a sacrifice. Her mind raced, heartbeat pulsating with the weight of darkness surrounding them. What would they have to pay to escape? And just as they broke into a frantic sprint, a loud snap resonated behind them, as if nature split in half. "Run!" she yelled, but the forest didn't care. Something was coming. But as they fled, one of them stumbled, casting a brief glance back. That moment seared deep into Jenny's mind, a glimpse of the true horror lurking just beyond the light. Is this the end? She wondered. And who would remain behind? They ran, hearts pounding in unison, the echoes of their footsteps swallowed by the suffocating darkness. Branches clawed at their arms and legs, and the whispers seemed to sharpen, coiling around them like a serpent waiting to strike. "Keep going. Don't look back," Jenny shouted, desperation edging her voice. Lily stumbled, her foot slipping in the damp earth. "I can't," she gasped, scrambling to regain her balance. Fear glimmered in her eyes, mixing with something deeper. Could it be despair? "Lily, please," Max urged, reaching for her as shadows swirled like specters, a menacing promise of what lurked just behind. They could feel the eyes of the forest, probing and evaluating, watching every heartbeat. When Lily finally regained her footing, they sprinted forward again, every stride feeling heavier, as if the ground itself was clawing at their ankles. "This way!" Jake shouted, veering left toward a narrow path where the trees seemed less dense. But the path was strangely familiar. A twisted memory, an echo of something they'd crossed before, pulled at Jenny's mind. "Wait! We've been here," she breathed, panic creeping back. Max shot her a worried glance, but the realization hit too late. "I told you we should have turned back," Lily cried, more to herself than anything. Suddenly, Jenny's foot caught on an unseen root, sending her sprawling to the ground. Pain shot through her knee, sharp and raw, as she struggled to push herself up. "Go! I'll catch up!" she yelled, masking her fear with bravado. "No way! We stick together," Max insisted, even as he hesitated. The weight of their despair began to crystallize into something dangerous, but the whispers surged, a cacophony of dark promises swirling around them. "Surrender," they beckoned. "Stay with us." Everything seemed to throb in sync with the forest's heartbeat. The trees shifted closer, branches looming as if to consume them, and though they tried to fight it, despair seeped into their bones. As Lily yanked Jenny up, something shifted behind them, a dark mass looming just past the edge of their vision. It wasn't a tree, not anymore. It pulsed, breathing, with eyes glimmering in the dark, too many eyes, like a collection of tormented souls. "Run!" Max screamed, ripping Jenny from Lily's grasp as if she were weightless. They barreled forward without looking back, intertwined like a single entity lost in a nightmare. But Jake wasn't so lucky. The darkness thickened, reaching out, and before they knew it, he was gone, swallowed whole into the void behind them. "Jake!" They screamed his name, but it was lost in the rustle of leaves, fading into echoes of their own beating hearts. The remaining trio stumbled back into the clearing they had encountered earlier, the sight of the weathered table now illuminated by the moonlight, a harrowing reminder. The bones were now arranged in a grotesque spiral, as if waiting for their owner to rise. "It wants us to join him," Lily whispered, backing away as the energy in the air thickened. "Stay away from the table," Max shouted, trying to corral them together. They felt the forest's hungry pulse beneath their feet, the very ground fueling a darkness that stirred restlessly. Suddenly the laughter returned, echoing off the pewter bark, swirling like poison in their ears. Shadows converged, pulling them toward the tableau of despair, whispers screaming louder, "Join us, or leave one behind." Without warning, a jagged scream pierced the air again, ripping through the chaos. "Jake!" Jenny's heart ached as she realized it wasn't Jake at all. It was calling to them, imitating their very own voices, mocking their failure, taunting their vulnerability. "Don't listen. We have to get out," Max yelled, grabbing Jenny by the shoulders. But as they turned to flee again, darkness enveloped them, the tree's sinister embrace tightening, and behind them, a dreadful shadow spread, an entity growing darker, greedier, and just as the pull of the forest threatened to swallow them whole, they heard the final breath of a name lost in the night, echoing one last time in the rustling. Leave, stay or go, what had they sacrificed? And what might they still lose? Branches raked against their skin as they stumbled backward, hearts hammering, fighting the urge to succumb to the terror that sought to consume them. The air grew thicker with each passing moment, each breath feeling like a desperate plea for escape. The ground pulsed beneath their feet, a living thing, eager to entrap them. They pushed forward, deeper into the forest's claustrophobic maze, but the path twisted illogically, refusing to yield. Max's eyes darted, searching for the way out, but the shadows danced in chaos, shifting unpredictably. "Where do we go?" Lily whimpered, the edge of panic creeping into her voice. She reached for Jenny's arm, squeezing it tightly as if it could anchor her to sanity. "We need to find the trail. We can't be far," Jenny urged, her words a weak promise against the encroaching dark. But as they moved, a bitter chill enveloped them, a distinct contrast to the oppressive heat of their fear. The laughter returned, sharper this time, slicing through the silent dread that clung to the trees like mold. Stop it. Lily screamed, the echoes of their own voices mocking their vulnerability. Just stop. Suddenly, a distant light flickered through the trees, drawing their attention like moths to a flame. Was it a way out? Relief surged within them, although unease quickly followed. They had learned by now that light in this cursed place meant danger lurking in the shadows. Stay together. Max insisted, his tone strict. We can't split up. As they approached the source of the light, they entered another clearing. This one was small, an eerie glow emanating from a rusted lantern sitting atop a rotting stump, illuminating something even more horrifying. Scattered around the stump were small wooden carvings, figures resembling them, contorted in expressions of fear. Each carving bore ragged edges, as if someone had hewn them from the very trees they fled. Who did this? Jenny whispered, trembling as she stepped closer to examine them. Their likenesses stared back at her, eyes hollow as if they were trapped eternally in a nightmarish scream. It's a warning, Max said, voice bleak. We're not the first. God knows how many have ended up like this. Lily fell to her knees, overwhelmed. What if we're never gonna get out? Tears streamed down her cheeks, and the forest echoed her despair, shadows writhed in response. Don't say that. Max barked, frustration flaring. We fight. We have to break this curse. Before he could finish, the laughter intensified, reverberating through their bones. The shadows thickened and crept closer, coiling around them with an insatiable hunger. Panic gripped their hearts as if shadows of those long lost were ready to drag them down into the pits of despair. Suddenly, the lantern flickered violently. In that brief gasp of darkness, something shifted. A figure emerged, tall and twisted, its face an amalgamation of torment and rage. Eyes gleamed like shards of ice, its grin wide and malevolent. Join me, it intoned, voice echoing like a dark hymn. You are nothing without me. You belong to the forest. Forever. They froze, fear paralyzing them. The urge to flee clashed against an unspeakable compulsion to approach. Shadows reached out, the ground beneath them seethed, they felt the pull of something ancient, calling them home. Max fought against the urge, grabbing Lily and Jenny, scrambling backward, terror igniting a fire within him. We need to break its hold. But the entity laughed, low and guttural. You are mine. You shall never leave. The air crackled with fear and desperation as they stepped back, the lantern's light flashing ominously, revealing more twisted figures lurking just beyond its glow. They weren't alone. As they turned to run, uncertainty gripped them. Each step felt more weighed down by dread. How could they escape this nightmare where every shadow felt like a whisper sealing their fate? Ahead, a path split into three, each more foreboding than the last. Which way? Jenny gasped, terror etched on her face. Any way but here. Max shouted, and they plunged into the path on the right, doubt gnawing at their heels as darkness swallowed them whole. But as they sprinted, the laughter grew louder, a grotesque symphony of despair and hope lost. They had chosen a direction, yet the question loomed: would they finally break free, or were they merely running deeper into the forest's hungry maw? Branches twisted sharply, clawing at them as they fled deeper into the shadows. Their hearts thundered in their ears, drowning out the ominous laughter that seemed to reverberate off the trees. Each breath was a battle, a frantic grasp for air laced with fear. Lily stumbled, nearly losing her footing, but Max caught her, urgency propelling them forward. Keep moving. He urged, a desperate edge to his voice that echoed the panic coursing through them. They stepped into a dimly lit corridor formed by tree trunks, oppressive and suffocating. Chilled gusts of wind swept through the forest, whispering secrets. The trees loomed, each silhouette looming like sentinels, judging them as they ran. Ahead, the flickering light trembled through the branches, cutting through the dark. Max reached for Jenny's wrist, pulling her closer, dread pooling in his stomach. We need to find shelter. No, Jenny protested, panic rising in her voice. That light, it could be another trap. It's better than being out here. Max shot back, his patience fraying. The shadows seemed to linger longer, as if listening to their exchange, eager for a slip, they stumbled into an open space, nasty and violent in its stillness. The light came from an old hunting lodge, weathered and leaning like a weary giant. Its windows were dark, a gaping maw that invited them closer despite the shudder crawling down Lily's spine. "We have to check it out," Max said, eyes darting to the trees beyond, where the shadows shifted like they were alive. With a deep breath, they approached the door, which creaked ominously when Max pushed it open. The air inside was stale, weighing heavy with dust and something ancient. "Hello?" Jenny called hesitantly, her voice barely more than a whisper. Silence answered her, thick and suffocating. The room was sparsely furnished, furnishings covered in white sheets as if forgotten by time. In each corner, remnants of lives once lived lingered, but no sign of any occupancy now. It was as if the house itself held its breath. "Maybe we can barricade the door," Max suggested, glancing back at their only exit, an unwelcoming portal back into the nightmare. Lily shivered, staring at the walls. "Look over there," she pointed. A fireplace loomed on the far wall, and hung above it were several framed pictures swathed in shadows. Max stepped closer, lifting one dusty frame. The image of a group smiled back at him, men, women, and children, faces eerily familiar. "Are those us?" Jenny gasped, as she joined him, her voice trembling. "No. It's not possible," Max stammered. Yet the resemblance was undeniable. They wore expressions of warmth, blissfully unaware of the sinister energy that seemed woven into the forest's very fabric. The door slammed shut behind them, rattling the walls, and they flinched, dread manifesting into a suffocating fog. Darkness pooled against the windows, thickening as the shadows outside danced with a life of their own. "What is happening?" Jenny whispered, voice quaking. The laughter returned, this time echoing through the lodge, blending with a low, mournful hum. The shadows spilled in through the cracks, swirling with an intent that froze them to the spot. Max backed up against the wall, heart racing. "We have to get out." Before he could finish, something small and wooden rolled across the floor, stopping at Lily's feet. She bent down, hands trembling as she picked up a tiny carving, identical to the ones they found outside, but this one had a different expression. "Glee. What is it doing here?" she breathed, eyes wide in horror. Suddenly, the pictures shifted, the faces contorting into grotesque smiles that twisted and turned like the trees outside, and the air felt electric with malevolence. Max felt the tendrils of panic tighten around his throat. "Run!" he screamed, but before they could dash back to the shattered door, the shadows surged forward, consuming the cabin in darkness. The last flicker of light from the lantern outside flickered weakly as the laughter crescendoed, its sinister rhythm framing their fear like a noose. "Are we too late?" Jenny cried. Voice faint, knowing in her gut that the answers awaited in the void. As the reality of their predicament clawed at their sanity, a chilling thought gripped Max. What would emerge from the darkness if they failed to escape? Outside, the forest held its breath. A breeze whispered through the trees, a tantalizing promise that there was something worse, something hiding behind the curse waiting for the moment to strike. What twisted truths lay entwined with their very existence? And then the door behind them cracked open, and the shadows surged, hungry for their fear. Max's heart raced as he watched the shadowy tendrils stretch, creeping toward them, eager for a taste of their terror. The air thickened, heavy with dread, and he could feel the laughter grow louder, gloating over their fear. His pulse pounded in his ears. "Jenny! Lily! We have to move!" he shouted, pushing against the wall, but it felt like the shadows were pulling him back, wrapping him in icy fingers. The tiny wooden carving slipped from Lily's fingers, clattering onto the hardwood floor. It rolled away, stopping near the fireplace. They all hesitated, fear thrumming through them, then instinct kicked in. Max dashed for the door, the faintest glimmer of light outside beckoning them. Lily followed closely, but Jenny hesitated, her gaze transfixed on the fireplace. "Look!" she yelled, pointing wildly. The carving had struck something beneath the mantel. "What are you doing?" Max shouted over his shoulder, desperation lacing his words, but Jenny knelt, brushing away dirt to reveal a small trapdoor hidden in the floor. "There's something down here. We have to check. Now's not the time." Max growled, but the shadows were creeping closer, swirling with uncontainable hunger. The laughter morphed into a cacophony, twisting their very thoughts into chaos. As if answering Max's protest, the trapdoor creaked open a fraction, releasing a musty, putrid smell. It was a deep, black void beneath the lodge, beckoning them into secrets best left buried. "Come on," Lily urged, glancing between the door and the advancing darkness, fear igniting her voice. The moment was a split second, caught between the terror of the shadows and the mystery below. The laughter faded as if the cabin itself held its breath, balancing on the precipice of decision. Max wrestled with choice. They could forge ahead into the unknown or confront the monstrosity behind them. The shadows were relentless, pressing in, dark tendrils brushing against his skin like icy fingers. "We have to go down." With a shuddering breath, they compelled themselves into the trapdoor. Cold air erupted, wrapping around them, and they tumbled into dark below. Jenny's screams scattered shards of panic but faded as they landed in what felt like a cavernous space. The darkness swallowed them, and the trapdoor clattered shut above. Silence enveloped them, thick and suffocating. "Is everyone okay?" Max whispered, his voice echoing eerily. He fumbled, finding a wall, grazed his fingers over cool earth. Fear clutched at his heart. Were they trapped now? "I can't see," Lily replied, her voice quivering. "I've got my phone." Jenny pulled it out, the faint light flickering on. It illuminated jagged rock walls dripping with moisture, and in that stark glow, they saw what was lying at their feet, more carvings. Hundreds of tiny figures sprawled across the ground, all captured in expressions of horror. With each step, the wicked faces inched closer, as if watching them. "This is wrong. This feels so wrong," Max muttered, rubbing the back of his neck against the chill creeping in. "Do you think it's a collection?" Jenny's voice wavered, dread heavy in the air. Before they could process what lay before them, the sound of scraping echoed from the darkness. The laughter returned not from the lodge, but deeper, alive and echoing around them. "Max?" Lily's voice cracked. "What do we do now?" The light fluttered, flickering as shadows danced closer, their twisted forms merging into one, morphing into grotesque shapes. In that instant, a whispering voice chilled their bones, reverberating through the darkness. "Stay or join us." The phone flickered more violently, and shadows surged towards them, as if responding to that very invitation. Fear flooded Max's veins. He stumbled backward, breath quickening. What next? They could be swallowed by the shadows or entangled in secrets that belonged in nightmares. As they huddled together, eyes wide in the darkness, a soft sound began to rise from below, beckoning them deeper into their fear. "What lies beneath?" Max questioned, a seed of dread taking root, a question hanging in the air, demanding an answer that might cost them everything. The ground beneath them trembled slightly. Max steadied himself, focusing on the prickling feeling at the back of his neck, desperately trying to shake off the icy touch of fear. The shadows throbbed closer. He shot a panicked look at Jenny, who remained glued to the spot, her phone's light trembling in her grasp. "We need to move," he said, his voice low and urgent. The laughter echoed again, chilling the very marrow of his bones, mocking them like predators toying with their prey. "Where?" Lily whispered. The edge of her voice was sharp with terror. "What is happening?" "Look!" Jenny exclaimed, her voice breaking through the mist of their fear. She turned her light towards the rock walls, and they all gasped. Scrawled in dark crimson, was it paint or something far more sinister? Were words, dripping like fresh blood, the first rule, always keep moving. "What the hell?" Max breathed, trembling. It felt like his heart was pounding in time with the echoing laughter, throbbing out a warning. As they took a cautious step forward, the carvings on the ground shifted subtly, the tiny faces seemingly contorting into expressions of horror, agony frozen in time. The shadows loomed, and that whisper echoed again, wrapping around them. Choose or perish, we can't stay here. Max shouted, more to himself than the others. He turned towards the tunnel that seemed to stretch infinitely into darkness, its path not welcoming them but rejecting them just the same. Something alive lay in the depth of that silence, waiting for their fear to become something palpable. Come on. Lily grabbed Jenny's arm, pulling her along. They pressed forward into the black maw of the tunnel, where the light flickered feebly against the damp stones. As they moved, the cave seemed to shift around them, making them question their footing. They were swallowed by darkness, and the air thickened, making it hard to breathe. Each step echoed ominously, a countdown to their fate. A series of scraping sounds intensified behind them, and Max dared a glance over his shoulder. The shadows wriggled like a living thing, almost forming a mass. A grotesque head emerged, solidifying into a shape. It didn't have eyes, instead, deep void stared out at him, filled with nothingness but the promise of despair. The laughter grew louder, swirling around them. Max, hurry. Jenny urged, her voice shrieking now. As if propelled by pure instinct, he lunged forward. The three of them raced deeper into the darkness, clutching onto fleeting hope. Suddenly, they stumbled upon an opening, a chamber illuminated by a strange, unnatural light. The walls glimmered like stars in the night, a mesmerizing sight reached only by lurking shadows that wove in and out of their vision, taunting them. Max's hands ran over the walls as he gazed in horror at mottled faces trapped in the stone. They were screaming silently, the expressions trapped in agony forever etched in history. What is this? Jenny's voice barely reached a whisper. Maybe this is where the carvings came from, Max stammered. A jumble of thoughts erupted in his mind. What if those faces, they were once like us? Or what if they were the ones who didn't follow the rules? Lily added, her voice laced with panic. The soft sound echoed again, deeper this time, a voice rising from the walls themselves, whispering darkly. The second rule, fear the lost souls. And then, the ground shook beneath their feet, and a loud rumbling grew. The chamber started to close in on them, the ceiling dropping. Shadows pulled and twisted, grasping at their bodies, seeking to drag them deeper into the void. Run! Max roared, grabbing both girls, pushing them toward a narrow exit on the opposite side of the chamber, fracturing the solid darkness that had entangled them. Behind them, that distant laughter morphed into furious howls of rage. As they broke free from the confines of the chamber, a desperate thought flitted through Max's mind. There had to be a way out, a way to survive. But as they emerged into another tunnel that branched off in several directions, a sickening realization settled. Which path? Lily asked, panic rising again, her voice slicing through the dark like a knife. The shadows formed shapes, creeping closer. The air thickened with the sounds of whispers, thick and hungry, drawing in closer. Choose quickly. What if the path they chose led them closer to freedom, or deeper into a nightmare? With their hearts racing, doubt clawed at their resolve. Would they emerge from this doomed place or be consumed by the darkness forever? Max! Jenny cried. What do we do now? He glanced between the paths, torn between terror and the unknown. The shadows whispered again, merging with the frantic thrumming in his heart. We have to decide before it's too late. Max felt the weight of the time ticking down in his chest. The whispers slithered around him, each one promising despair and doom, a warning cloaked in dark anticipation. He swallowed hard, looking down one tunnel that seemed to narrow into an abyss, while the other widened, almost inviting them in with reassurance. Wait! He yelled, heart racing. What if one of these leads back to that chamber? We need to think. It doesn't matter. Lily cried out, her hands shaking. Those shadows are getting closer. The laughter returned, piercing the air, mocking their indecision, wrapping around their minds like a vice. Max turned back, forcing himself to face the looming figure in the curtain of shadows. It writhed, shifting shape, but he could still see that pitiless void where its eyes should have been. A scream clawed at his throat, but he buried it deep, trying to focus. Remember the first rule, always keep moving, he said, almost to himself. They had to act. They couldn't be trapped in this terrible stillness. Fine. The left path. Jenny shouted, urgency dripping from her voice as she thrust her light toward the darker route. We move now. Without waiting for a reply, she sprinted toward it, her feet echoing in the hollow tunnel. Max shot a glance at Lily and they followed, adrenaline propelling them forward. Each footfall reverberated, a rhythm that danced dangerously close to the cacophony of shadows behind them. As they ran, the air thickened, clinging to their skin like a wet shroud. The darkness felt alive, swirling around and invading their senses. The shrill whisper became a cacophony, 1,000 voices screeching in unison. Fear the lost souls, they taunted, as if reminding them of the weight of their choices. They turned a sharp corner, and the tunnel opened up into another chamber. But this one felt wrong. The walls were slick, like the insides of a beast, and the light from Jenny's phone revealed grotesque markings. It wasn't just the faces anymore. There were entire bodies etched into the stones, locked in eternally frozen screams. Max's stomach rocked with nausea. We can't stay here. Let us find another way, Lily hissed, her eyes darting aimless and panicked, searching for refuge. Then the shadows morphed again, slithering along the ground, pooling together like a dark liquid. A low growl emanated from their depths, and Max felt terror grip him like ice. They were running out of time. Choose a path. Jenny shrieked, now. In that moment, it hit him. The markings, the whispers, they were all warnings, lessons from those who come before. But what if the lost souls weren't just victims? What if they were still trapped, conscious but unable to escape? The twisted shadows seemed to swell as if in agreement, the laughter rising sinisterly. We go right. Max shouted, thrusting a hand toward the tunnel that flickered as the shadows ebbed. Are you sure? Lily begged, doubt anchoring her voice. I don't know. He admitted, fear cracking through his bravado. But it's our only chance. We can't stay here. With no time left to debate, they charged down the chosen path. As they plunged into the dark tunnel, a haunting resonance vibrated beneath their feet, like a heartbeat propelling them faster into unknown horrors. Lily stumbled, catching herself on the edge of a jagged rock, gasping as she struggled to regain her footing. Max, wait! But it was too late. An ear-splitting roar erupted from behind them, the shadows now a wave surging toward them, hungry and relentless. Run! Max yelled, adrenaline igniting his movements. In that chaos, they pushed forward, blindly following the path, praying it would lead to salvation instead of another death trap. But the laughter echoed again, this time distorted, as if mocking their every desperate plea. The third rule is the most crucial, trust no one. Max halted, dread rippling through him. He felt something shift, an unseen presence looming larger than fear, a betrayal brewing in the shadows that echoed their choices. The walls started closing in, and the whispers grew louder, rising in a crescendo of despair. Decide your fates before you become one of us. And as the tunnel began to twist and turn, he knew they were not alone. The shadows were closing in, and time was running out. Were they truly together in this, or had the darkness already pulled them apart? Max. Jenny's voice shattered the swirling horror. What did you choose? He gritted his teeth, the looming dread now a solid presence surrounding them, whispering forgotten truths. They had to survive, but at what cost? The tunnel stretched on, darkness wrapping around Max and his friends like a suffocating blanket. Every heartbeat echoed louder than the last as they forced themselves deeper into the unknown. Memories of the chamber, with its twisted faces and trapped screams, flickered in his mind, making him feel sick and helpless. Keep moving. He barked, urgency overriding his fear. Lily brushed past him, eyes darting wildly. Max, what do we do if she began, but was cut off by the growl behind them, a low, rumbling promise of despair. They sprinted, gasping for air, the urge to turn back clawing at them. But every instinct told Max that the rear lay only shadows and despair. The whispers pursued like a relentless tide, each wave breaking against the shore of their sanity. Over here! Jenny shouted, pointing her flickering phone toward a faint light up ahead. Hope rushed in, but it was quickly followed by an icy grip of dread as they stumbled into another chamber. It was vast and sinister, littered with what appeared to be remnants of old equipment, tools, logs, and something darker, bones. Max felt bile rise in his throat. This was a graveyard, a silent testament to those who had been lost to the darkness. Grains of dust drifted through the beams of their lights, revealing a thick mist that seemed to breathe. "Max, please. We can't stay," Lily pleaded, eyes wide with terror. But something shimmered in the corner of his vision, an ominous reflection. Shadows danced along the walls, bending in impossible ways as they coiled closer. "Do you see that?" he muttered, pointing. "It's just more shadows." Jenny whimpered, her confidence faltering. "No," Max whispered, squinting. "The shadows weren't random. They formed grotesque shapes, almost human, contorting as if trapped." "Run!" Jenny screamed again, finally breaking. They didn't wait for his confirmation, they sprinted toward a narrow exit on the far side. "We need to split up," Max yelled as they reached the sudden incline of rock that loomed before them. The darkness pulsed like a living thing, thrumming with their heartbeat, hungry for more. "No!" Lily cried. "We can't leave each other. Trust me. We'll find a way back." He felt the weight of that lie like a stone in his stomach as he turned to sprint down the left passage, the shadows behind them snarling in frustration. As he ran, his mind raced. What was it that fueled the darkness? What had happened in this logging camp? The air hung thick with decay, wrapping itself around Max's limbs, slowing him like a lead weight. The path wound tighter until he reached a dead end. Panic surged. Behind him, he heard Jenny's distant scream echo. Was it too late? Had he made the wrong choice? He pressed against the wall, trying to breathe, trying to remember their last moments together. "Turn back, Max," a voice whispered, eerily familiar. He spun around, heart racing. Nothing but shadows twisting, merging, grinning at him with their empty voids. "No!" he yelled, shaking his head. Shadows weren't supposed to speak, weren't supposed to know his name, but the laughter returned, spiraling around him as he felt the ground trembling beneath his feet. Whether it was the music of their doom, or something else, he couldn't tell. Had he betrayed them with his choice? Suddenly, the tunnel cracked open above, revealing the night sky beyond. He shielded his eyes against the sudden brightness, almost feeling its warmth. Lily. Jenny. But darkness rushed in fast, a torrent of shadow that filled the space, swallowing the light and turning the sky into a starless void. He felt the presence close in, the whispers turning frantic. "Decide your fate or suffer with the choices made." Max braced himself, stuck between two horrors, the shadows and the unknown that lurked beyond the void. And just before the last flicker of hope faded, he heard a scream unlike any other, one that wrapped itself in despair. It echoed through the darkness, pulling at him like a yanked thread ready to unravel everything. What had they awakened? "Max." The voice was louder now, frantic and desperate. His heart sank. "What choice do I have?" But the shadows thickened, a wall of dark energy closing in, leaving only one haunting question on his lips: would he find a way back to them, or was it all too late? The darkness had swallowed them whole, but Max felt an insatiable determination surge within him. He couldn't give in. He wouldn't accept the crushing weight of despair that threatened to claim him. "Lily. Jenny. I'm coming," he shouted, as panic seized him that he pressed forward, adrenaline fueling his movements as he pushed through the shadows that twisted and writhed around him. Each step echoed into the nothingness, a frantic drumbeat of urgency contradicting the stillness surrounding him. Was this how it would end? Stranded, lost, consumed by a void he couldn't escape. Suddenly, another scream sliced through the silence, a mixture of terror and helplessness. It was Jenny's voice. Fear cranked into high gear in Max's chest. He dashed down the narrow tunnel that branched off the passage he had taken. The walls pulsed like a heartbeat, but he couldn't stop. He forced his legs to move faster, propelling himself into the dark. "Jenny! Where are you?" he shouted, praying to every god that would listen that she would respond. If he could only reach her, they could fight this dark force together. The passageway opened into a larger cavern, its ceiling impossibly high. The last flicker of the lantern danced on the walls, illuminating grotesque carvings of anguish that twisted into contorted shapes. Max felt bile rise in his throat, but the urge to vomit was outweighed by the desperate need to find his friends. "Jenny! Lily!" he called, the echoes bouncing back in a mocking refrain. It was eerily quiet, but just then, he heard footsteps, hurried and frantic. A shiver of hope ignited. "Over here." As if answering his call, he spotted a faint light flickering in the corner of the cavern. He sprinted toward it, his heart pounding, only for it to dim as he neared. Max's breath hung heavy, the realization sank in like lead. He was not alone. The shadows thickened, twisting into forms, eyes stirring in the darkness. They were no longer mere figures, they were the lost souls, and they held the weight of their agony like shackles. "Stay forever," they whispered in dreadful unison. "Get back!" Max shouted, the sound raw and desperate. He felt the pulse of dread claw at his chest. "I want to be one of you." And with that, he summoned every ounce of courage and surged forward through the oncoming darkness, ready to fight for his friends. The shadows roared, an angry swell that filled the cavern, but Max's disbelief overpowered their whispers. A glimmer of hope illuminated his path as he pushed through, and suddenly, there they were. Jenny and Lily stood huddled together, fear etched into their faces. "Max!" Jenny gasped, relief washing over like a cleansing wave. He rushed to them, and they embraced, holding on tight as a bright light enveloped them. The shadows flickered, shrinking back, and Max felt powerful instinct pressed upon him. This was their moment. "The rules!" he shouted, recalling the warnings they had encountered. "The first rule is to keep moving. We can't stop." Lily nodded through streaming tears, her resolve rekindled. "We've got to stick together." With urgency propelling them forward, they ran. Each heartbeat echoed louder than the last, and the darkness behind them seemed to grow impatient, hungry. The cavern twisted again, opening into another tunnel, this one streamlined as a narrow escape. "We'll make it!" Max yelled, determination firing him on. But then the shadows surged, clawing at their heels. "No! No! Keep going!" Jenny shouted, pushing them onward. The forest wanted their fear, and they wouldn't give it satisfaction. "Choose a path. Choose fast." The whisper echoed, taunting and relentless. They approached a fork, shadows swirling ominously around both routes. "Left!" Jenny yelled, and without a moment's hesitation, they veered into the dark. Light burst in the distance, a horizon kissed by daylight. They ran faster, fearless, the promise of freedom beckoning. As they broke through the threshold, the sunlight poured over them like a cleansing wave. But darkness loomed at the exit. The whispers grew faint, but laughter still echoed, a promise that the forest might never really let them go. With the last step, they broke free into the sunlight pouring through the trees. The haunting darkness shied away, skittering back beneath the shadows of the towering pines. They gasped in unison, collapsing onto the forest floor, breathing deep the scent of fresh air, glorious and real. "We did it," Lily panted, disbelief washing over them. But Max knew that even though they had escaped, the shadows lived on. "What do we tell people?" Jenny asked, tearing up. "We can warn others," Max replied softly. "But we'll never forget. They need to understand the forest will always be there waiting." The laughter faded into the breeze as they gripped each other in a shared promise, a bond forged in fear but unyielding in spirit. Together, they breathed in unison, feeling the strength of what they had battled. A group bound not by fear, but by resilience. As they made their way back, a chill danced down their spines, leaving them with a reminder. Always keep moving, for shadows lurked in the forest, eager to claim those blinded by the dark. Make no mistake, darkness doesn't forget. Now, if you loved this conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help spread these tales far and wide. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what you just read. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this thrilling conclusion. Your support means everything. Let us keep our community thriving.